Hello. Haven't had time to post any commentaries during the last weekend since I kind of had to deal with Kings of the Sea 3, which turned out to be a really fun cast, and we got a really nice amount of viewers. So thank you all of you who tuned in to listen to the cast. I think we had like 1.6k viewers as a peak, which is pretty nice. The semi-finals and the finals will be played next weekend. Semis are on Saturday and finals on Sunday. So hoping to see if we might even get more viewers for that, since those are going to be some really hype games. Anyway, enough about that. Today I will be featuring the Colorado, the Tier 7 US battleship. Now I've been kind of returning to a bunch of ships that I haven't played in a long time on my main account. Those that follow my streams have seen me play a bunch of ships that, well, I haven't played in a long time. The Colorado was one of them. Back when I played the Colorado on my main account the last time, it was an absolute nightmare. It had so many weaknesses. It was just pretty much a disaster of a ship. Everyone absolutely hated the ship. So it was pretty fun to return to it now that it's been significantly buffed from its state since then. Well, the buffs have been there for a while, and I did in fact experience the buffs when I played some ranked last season at Tier 7. Or actually no, it was the previous season when I played Colorado in ranked. But other than that, how does the Colorado play? Well, the obvious weaknesses are still there. The ship is insanely slow. In fact, that's still going to be the absolute #1 weakness this ship has. It is so slow. The turning circle is quite nice, and it's a fairly compact size. The combination of a tight turning circle and a fairly short ship obviously means that carrier drops are quite avoidable, and in general torp volleys are not as deadly. It also has pretty good torpedo protection, but mostly it comes down to the tight turning circle and the small size, which makes the Colorado less of an attractive torpedo target. But that doesn't mean it's all roses. The slow speed means that if you are caught in a bad position, you are very easily punished because it takes you so long to reposition. And well, any hits on you, as you can see right there, tend to be penetrations, and that's because you got 25mm armor pretty much everywhere except on your thick broadside belt. Everything else is 25mm, and you get punished quite hard. On the other hand, though, the guns are big. It's good. The ship has good accuracy, and the guns are very big. At 406mm, if a cruiser sails in a straight line, you can punish them very heavily in this ship. It's only got 8 guns, which is of course going to feel like a downgrade coming from New Mexico's 12 guns, but they hit hard, they are accurate, and the penetration capabilities are great. They do, however, they are very slow, the shells that is. That's because the muzzle velocity is as characteristic for US battleships. It's very slow, so it's going to take some getting used to the guns. But when you do get used to the guns, the Colorado is pretty damn fearsome when it comes to firepower. If you're a cruiser, you do not want to be on the receiving end of these guns. Hell, even if you're a battleship, you do not want to be on the receiving end. And talking about battleships, it does actually there is a bit of a funny thing going on with Tier 7 battleships, and that's that they all have guns that are much bigger than their armor. So you can pretty much overmatch and penetrate any equal tier battleships without any issues. Hell, the Colorado can punish Tier 9 battleships. That's how big the guns are, and the Nagata can do the same thing. It's got 406mm guns. And well, for example, the Friedrich der Grosse, one of the gun options on that ship, are 406s as well. Montana 406s. So let's just say that the gun caliber you have is very large for your tier, which means you don't really need to care too much about targets trying to angle against you. In fact, by habit, you can pretty much shoot at the nose. If a battleship tries to angle nose in towards you, you can pretty much overmatch their nose pretty much every single time, unless they're significantly higher tier, in which case you will have some issues, or if you get something like a Tirpitz or a Bismarck angling in. But cruisers, you can just punish them all. That the Omaha, he was trying to angle in towards me, absolutely no chance. And that's the same thing for pretty much all the cruisers you will run into. You will overmatch their bows. If they try to angle, you will probably punch through the armor regardless. So it's slow, but and it takes a lot of damage from pretty much everything. But the gunpowder is very fierce. I think the gunpowder was a bit too fierce there, since all I got was 6 overpens. The Kirov, of course, is notorious for being a very papery cruiser, which probably adds a huge impact. Now, a very common complaint on the Colorado is, of course, that why does the Nagata have so much more HP and the Colorado has so much less? Well, they kind of attempted to balance this out by giving the Colorado a significantly stronger heal. I think you can heal like 65%, which is 65% of penetration damage you take, which is a lot more than any other. Goodbye, Cleveland. Which is a lot more than any other battleship can heal, even more than the Warspite, 60%. So that's a significant amount, but the problem really is that it doesn't still quite match up to the Nagata, because you eat so much damage and you're so slow, and one of the big issues is also that your HP pool is so low to begin with. You don't really have that buffer. If you hit an unlucky Citadel or let's say 2 unlucky Torps in a Nagata, well, it hurts, but you still got half your HP pool left, so it's not really the end of the world. Whereas in the Colorado, if you eat 2 Torps or a Citadel or something like that, you're probably down to way below half HP. You're probably sitting at a third of your HP, and you have to scramble to survive. And of course, since you are such a slow-moving battleships, when everyone else sees that you've just eaten this damage and you're suddenly a vulnerable target, it's very hard to get away from the situation alive. So you like the safety buffer that the Nagata has, which is a pretty damn big downside. You saw the damage I ate there, by the way, from the Colorado. That's kind of the amusing thing in Colorado versus Colorado fights. It doesn't really matter how you angle or how you line up. You see, all I'm getting is pins or overpens, and I try to make him shoot my broadside, the tanky broadside, to tank some of the shells, but really all he gets is pins and overpens. If you try to angle straight in towards the Colorado, well, he can overmatch your nose, just like you can overmatch his nose. So there's this kind of, well, honestly, pretty retarded mode or retarded thing going on at tier 7, where you constantly have bigger guns than you have armor, so angling doesn't really matter that much. In fact, you can try to slow down and dodge like I did there. That's pretty much your best chance. Manage to mitigate some of the damage by straight up dodging it, but he shoots towards my angled broadside and he still gets 2 penetrations, so yeah, that's a bit awkward. In general though, slowing down and accelerating too much isn't really recommended in the Colorado, because the ship actually has one of the worst power to weight ratios in the game, which means that it's going to take you a long time to stop, it's going to take you a long time to accelerate. If you try to stop and reverse, it's going to take you absolutely ages, so you really kind of want to stay on the move in the Colorado at all times. The ship is slow to begin with, you don't want to add to that by stopping and slowing down a lot. Anyway, I chose this game as it was pretty short, but it pretty much summed up everything that I wanted to show. A very short game, 111k damage dealt. Not really that special, but considering how quick the game was over, in fact looking at the team score, almost got 2k XP in this very short game. So a pretty commanding game in that sense, that you got to see the firepower of the ship. I kind of just pushed through sea and deleted everything in my way. It's important that you put yourself in positions where you can constantly shoot at enemies. If you try to play too safe in the Colorado, it's very possible that you'll have games where you are constantly out of position that you don't even have time to deal any damage, or you only have time to deal very, very long range damage. In fact, it's better to put yourself in slightly risky situations than putting yourself in too safe of situations, because rather do some damage before you go down, unfortunately early, than put yourself in too safe of a position and have almost no impact on the game itself, and even if you survive, your rewards are very mediocre. Looking at the damage dealt, we can see 110k damage, or 111 actually, with only 38 shells, so that kind of does give you an idea. In fact, the game only lasted 8 minutes and 47 seconds, but the sheer AP power that you have at your hands. You only have 8 guns, yes, but those 8 guns are not to be underestimated. You want to calmly set up your shots and make sure that you land them, because when you do, the game tends to reward you quite well with these guns. It's very unlikely that you'll be seeing a lot of bounces or anything of the sorts. The guns are very reliable when it comes to penetration. Anyway, let's move on to my recommended Colorado build. Right, starting off, we of course have the modules. Now, usually you want to get the hull upgrade as quickly as possible on most battleships, but the Colorado is a bit of a special case that the hull upgrade doesn't really give you that much. It gives you very minimal amounts of HP, 1.1k. It doesn't really affect your main guns, or it doesn't affect your main guns at all. It has no real impact on your armor. The only thing you gain is 1.1k HP, better rudder shift, and a lot of AA. And considering the major weakness of the ship is of course the maneuverability, you really want to get the engine first, because, well, it's still slow, but at least it's not 18.6 knots slow, but instead it's the 21 knots slow. So yeah, it's still going to be a slow ship, but the stock engine is really the biggest issue. So personally, I would upgrade the engine, follow it up with upgrading the hull, because you really do want that anti-air, because, well, with the inclusion of ships like Gneisenau and Scharnhorst, the Colorado has become a much more attractive target for carriers to strike. So you do want to get the hull, followed by the range. Consumable-wise, first priority is of course the premium repair, followed by premium heal, followed by finally spotter plane. I prefer to use the spotter plane because I consider the AA and in general the compact size of the Colorado means that if you do get dropped, your anti-air combined with your small size and the ability to turn into the torps with a very small turning circle means that you shouldn't really have too many issues. Before you get the hull upgrade, you might be using fighter plane just for safety against carriers, but the spotter plane is very useful for shooting smoked up Royal Navy cruisers, and of course Kutuzovs and things like this, and it's also very useful for lobbing your shells or islands. Upgrade wise, priority number 1, main armaments mod 1. Priority number 2, AA. Now, I don't really see the point in running the additional main gun range, because I feel like even at 18.8 you will struggle with your dispersion, and you do have your spotter plane if you really need additional dispersion. So I don't really see the point of increasing your main gun range any further than this. Instead, I prefer getting the AA buff, because once again it helps you significantly more than any of the others. Damage control 1 and 2. Rudder shift is an option, but honestly I feel like the rudder, you can't actively really avoid shells in the ship because it's so slow. It's such a big target and it's so slow. So there's really no point in trying to avoid shells, because if a cruiser is spamming you, you want to be able to reduce the fire damage you take more than you want to be able to attempt to dodge them, which you're not really going to do. So I prefer the damage control system mod 2. Captain perks wise, we have my pretty much standard US battleship build. Now, I run priority target. This is because I think this was an old cruiser captain that I moved over, but I have actually quite enjoyed it. Preventive maintenance is probably the best option for a battleship. But I wouldn't say that priority target necessarily bad, but it's pretty useless when you get to higher tier battleships, because you're gonna get shot at constantly, and knowing that you're being shot at isn't really that useful. So get preventive maintenance first instead of getting priority target. Another perfectly valid option is direction center. Having 2 planes up means more chances of spotting the torpedoes coming your way, because the planes are of course useful for other things besides just increasing your range. So yeah, the priority target not really that recommended. Just because you see me have it doesn't mean I'm recommending it. I would go for the turret traverse first, because the turrets are quite slow on the Colorado, so getting expert marksman first, it will help you a lot in the higher tier ships as well. Follow it up with superintendent. You want that additional heal, followed up with concealment expert. Concealment expert is okay on the Colorado. I don't consider it amazingly earth-shatteringly great. I mean, you get your concealment down to 14, which is pretty okay. but it's going to be fantastically strong on the tier 8 and tier 9 and tier 10, so you're kind of preparing for the future by getting it now. Once you have Concealment Expert, Vigilance, you want to be able to deal with all those torps being thrown your way, which there will be plenty of. Followed by Adrenaline Rush, Faster Reload, finally followed by AFT, increasing your AA range. Now, the ball force damage might not seem that impressive yet. I mean, it's already quite good at 127, but the higher you go in the ranks on the battleships, especially when you get to North Carolina, you start having really impressive ball force damage, 238 on this one, and you really want to increase the range on this. And of course you increase the range on your big guns as well, but you start having so much ball force power, especially when we upgrade the hull. Oh, it's already upgraded since I have it. And the same thing kind of repeats itself on the Iowa, especially when we get to the really upgraded hull. You can see 300 damage on the ball force, and that's the radius we really want to increase, because, well, that's what AFT does, increases it by 20%, which is what makes getting AFT so strong. But you notice I have it fairly late in my build, because I don't consider it that large of a priority, since we already have one of the AA range upgrades. If you do have both though, you get a pretty impressive AA on the ship, but it's unlikely if you're leveling a captain that you will be able to afford it. Anyway, that was my Colorado commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.